Okay, welcome everyone. Morning, good afternoon. 232nd Reading online sports economics seminar, sponsored by the Sports Economics Review, and we have one of the journal's two editors presenting. And just like the other editor, Alex has been a keen supporter throughout. Presented the second ever Roses seminar back in 2020. And I think this is about maybe your 8th or 9th, Alex. I was trying to count.
No, it's my 4th or 5th.
Only? Oh, okay. I've got more posters.
Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe. The last time was about Shabbat.
Could have been, yeah. Excellent. Well, a few things to say before we get going. One of them actually is Danielle is on the call. We're not going to have another meeting before the World Cup begins, the FIFA World Cup. And Danielle is organising a sophisticated prediction competition, as always. If you're interested, not in the WhatsApp group. And indeed, if you want to be in the WhatsApp group, also drop me your phone number and I can add you. Alex, I assume you're quite happy to take questions as you go along?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, you know how the format works, so I'll hand the virtual floor to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. By the way, the fact that I'm in a Molde jersey is not because I wanted to show off that I have a Molde jersey, which is probably also the case. But today we have here in Norway this Jersey Day, where people come with different sports jerseys to support children that have cancer. So that's basically the reason why I'm dressed the way I'm dressed. So thank you very much for organizing all these nice events. And let me share the screen. Okay. Okay, so I hope you can see it, right? Let me put you here. Oh, sorry. Great. Okay, so that's a joint paper, yet another paper about something that I don't do, something that relates to sport. And that's a joint paper with Felix Soto and Tim Pawlowski from the University of Tübingen. And this research was funded by the German Research Foundation, and the details are there. So let's actually start. Let me just put on mute, sorry. Yeah, great. Okay, so the title is Trimming of Extreme Votes and Favoritism Evidence from the Field. Now, I'm a big fan of this performance evaluations, and I'm even a bigger fan of people who call themselves real experts. And then we see variants of scores or of votes, whether this is in the Supreme Court or in sports competitions. But we use these subjective performance evaluations in so many settings. It can be in research grants, labor markets when we hire somebody, even wine competitions. I don't know if Bernd is here, but he's a great fan of this thing. And of course, in sports competitions. And the outcome of those evaluations may have really big economic consequences. This can be big prizes, or if a person is hired to work, he can get a salary. So these are really important things. And to ensure that there is a high quality in evaluation, we appoint panels of experts who should be unbiased. Now, we assume when we appoint those experts, there is a very innocuous assumption, yeah, like something that we don't even speak about it. Those experts should make their evaluations sincerely, right? There should be no bias. And in theory, this sincere voting is backed up by several really seminal works. So let's start with Black, who established the median voter theorem according to which the best strategy is approaching a median voter preferences if voters' preferences are single-picked, and remember the single-pickedness. And then Moulin kind of used this theorem and showed that in the case of such single-picked preferences, sincere voting is a dominant strategy under the median rule. So what is this median rule? That the selected alternative, whether this is in elections or in the job market or whatever, is the one that was selected by the median voter. Well, it's all nice, but most real-world preferences are rather multidimensional than single-picked. And the decision-making mechanism almost never follows this median rule. Now, I really want to believe in a just and fair world, but unfortunately, the reality shows that the assumption of sincere voting is really too strong, especially when people have different conflicting interests. Among people, but also within the same person, there can be conflicting interests, and I will discuss it a bit later. And there's a very nice game theoretical study by Austin, Smith, and Banks in American Political Science Review. So they show there that sincere voting is not rational, even when individuals have a common preference to choose the best alternative. So we want to believe in sincere voting, but unfortunately, the reality is much more complicated. Now, when we deviate from sincere voting, one very well-known example is favoritism. And we've seen favoritism in so many cases, in so many settings, all over. So, for example, we are all a researcher, and we believe in unbiased evaluation of our papers, of our grant proposals, and so on and so on. But even applicants for research grants have a higher probability of success if they have the same affiliation as one of the judges from the evaluation panel. And from here, you can understand why many universities exert an effort to put their employees into those evaluation panels. Of course, there is evidence of bias in Eurovision Song Contest. I don't know if you know, so maybe some American friends don't know, but Eurovision Song Contest, this is this lovely competition of music where they promote inclusion and love. Or at least used to do it back in the days. But the evidence there is that the countries vote for each other based on geographical closeness or cultural closeness and so on and so on. I think in this year, even Moldova had a big scandal because they did not vote for Romania. And then one of the head of the jury had to resign or something like this. So there are some scandals in Eurovision Song Contest. Who would have thought? Now, in sports competitions, of course, judges tend to assign higher scores to their compatriots. We published a paper with Tim and Felix about ski jumping. Also, Zitsevits found the same. In dressage competition, Sandberg found the same result. In gymnastics, and so on and so on. There is a very nice paper by Price and Wolfers in QGE about the fact that so they found that referees in NBA call for more fouls. So white referees call for more fouls against black players, and vice versa. Black referees call for more fouls against white players. There is another paper that in Swiss football, referees issue significantly more yellow cards against teams that come from a different linguistic area. Or there is also evidence that ethnicity plays a role in decisions of judges in Israeli courts. Now, how do we fight it? Given that favoritism is so widely spread, how do we fight? And one way to fight it is to introduce the so-called trimming mechanism, or often described as Olympic mean. So what is trimming? Is just to exclude the most extreme scores from the final panel evaluation. Usually in sports competitions, in most of them, the highest score, and the lowest scores are being trimmed, and then the mean of the remaining scores is used to evaluate the performance. Now, it's relatively intuitive why people do it, because when we remove scores that potentially contain the largest degree of bias, trimming should mitigate this bias ex post after the scores are given. Yeah. And of course, this is used widely in figure skating, ski jumping, you name it. Even I did not know that, but when writing this paper, I was fascinated to know that even if you remember, there was this LIBOR, London Interbank Offered Rate, that used to be the key global benchmark for borrowing between banks. Every day at 11 o'clock in the morning, a LIBOR was announced, but then they found that there was a big scandal because banks also rigged the scores of the interest rate, and it was removed, even using this trimming. Well, it's of course intuitive that trimming mitigates the overall bias, yes, ex post, but it's not clear whether it also contributes to more sincere voting by individual evaluators ex ante when they approach the task of evaluation. The question is bias becoming lower when the trimming mechanism is introduced or not? So for that, we actually need to compare voting with and without trimming. Generally speaking, this International Organization of Security Commissions that were responsible for this LIBOR, they encourage committees to use trimming. And they say that this trimming reduces the individual incentive to try to manipulate. So they claim that there is also ex ante effect on evaluations, and people become more sincere in their evaluations when they know that the score can be trimmed. And the possible idea behind this is that the evaluator wants to be perceived as unbiased. And therefore, the assigned score should be in the subset of the remaining non-trimmed scores. And this is more likely to happen if the judge or the evaluator gives a score that is as close as possible to the actual performance of the candidate. But if we were talking about favoritism, there is also another thing that may affect evaluator decision making. And this happens when the evaluator wishes to favor his or her preferred candidate. Yeah, and therefore he wants to assign the highest score to the preferred candidate, whether this is a compatriot or somebody that they know or somebody from our institution. Yeah. Now, the point is that this score will obviously be trimmed, but that will increase the overall average by keeping the second highest score of another evaluator within the subset of the remaining scores. So still, I need to give a higher score to keep the second highest there. Yeah. And that way I will actually favor my compatriot or somebody that I want to favor. So basically, there is a trade-off between private and reputational preferences. So private preference is to favor somebody I want, but reputation preference is to be as sincere as possible. And they kind of contradict each other. There is a trade-off. Now, so we discussed the single peak preferences, and under single peak preferences, there should be sincere voting. But in a study by Puppe and Rollman in 2021 that was published in Games and Economic Behavior, they found that there can be several Nash equilibria, one of which may include non-sincere voting. So it's theoretically not clear whether trimming the extreme votes results in reduced bias or not. Now, it is obviously important to fight all those biases, and therefore we need to develop evidence-based policy. Yeah. And we need some more empirical evidence, not only theoretical papers. And to the best of our knowledge, there are only 2 lab experiments that investigated the effect of trimming, a paper by Puppe and Rollman and a paper by Lewis and colleagues. both published in Games and Economic Behavior. And there is also another paper, which is non-experimental, non-lab paper by Essel and colleagues, and they created hypothetical scenario as if no trimming was used for this determination of Libor rate. And they show that if there was a trimming, the bias becomes lower. But they never observed behavior of evaluators with and without trimming mechanisms. Okay? There was a question or some promotion of something?
A promotion. Sorry, Alex, didn't realize that would disturb you.
No. That's no. That's fine. That's fine. I think it was yeah. Okay, good. Now this is a slide that we have to say that lab experiments obviously have a lot of value, absolutely. But still there is some criticism. So for example, Robert Aumann, in an interview to Oliver Hart, two Nobel Prize laureates, so he said the following: in experiments, the monetary payoff is usually very small. More importantly, the decisions that people face are not ones that they usually take, with which they are familiar. The whole setup is artificial. It is not a decision that that really affects them and to which they are used. So there is a criticism. Of course, again, we can say about more or less every setting that there are some problems. But on top of it, in the two previous papers that I listed about papers on the effect of trimming, the experimental design intended to resemble allocation of budget between different projects rather than to evaluate individual candidates. So basically, there is not a single paper, empirical paper, on the effect of trimming of evaluation of individual performances. Not a single one. So we need more evidence in general and from real-world settings in particular. So as I said, the theoretical literature is huge. At some point when we wrote this paper on theory, this paper, that paper, so much about trimming, but there is not a single study using real-world observational data to investigate the effect of trimming on favoritism or any other bias of individual evaluators. Not a single one. Now, what would be the perfect way to measure the effect of trimming? So the perfect way would be to observe evaluations without trimming and to compare it to evaluations with trimming and then see what happens. Now, the reason why there are no papers on that is that real world, it's very difficult, close to impossible to find a natural setting with an a priori well-defined group of candidates who are plausibly suspected of being biased and whose evaluations are observed for similar tasks with and without trimming mechanism. So basically, we need two things. We need to have the same setting, one time with trimming, one time without trimming. On top of it, we have to have a predefined group that is suspected to be biased. How do you find it in real life? Really close to impossible. Luckily, yeah, that's the usual thing. Luckily, we found a setting. So we can compare evaluations of professional experts who assess the performance of highly incentivized and professional individuals in real competitive settings with and without trimming of extreme scores. And for that, we use the Olympic sport of frisky half pipe. So frisky half, when my wife asked me one time, so what paper are you working now? I said, frisky half pipe. And she said, did you just invent this now? So for those of you who is not familiar with frisky half pipe, I will show you what it is. So this is what they do. It's a crazy sport. It's an Olympic sport. You see it, right, James? Yeah. So this is the sport we are using as setting to investigate the effect of trimming. Yeah, frisky half pipe. So professional athletes perform a series of jumps and tricks on their skis while going down the length of large half-pipe made of snow. And let's say this is the last forum I have to convince people that sports data is very useful to study economics. So in this sport, after the athletes complete their performance, each member of a jury assigns them with one score. And one of these judges can be a compatriot of the performing athlete, making this judge a perfect subject to study potentially biased evaluations. We don't say that judges are biased, but given different settings, maybe they are biased. They can be biased in favor of their compatriots. So let's see. Most importantly, so one thing we found, there are judges that can be biased, but this happens in many sports. But most importantly, and that's actually the selling point of this paper, up to 2018-19 season, the scores of all judges on the jury panel were used to calculate the average without trimming the extreme scores. Starting from 2018-19 season, the highest and lowest scores were trimmed. So basically, this change in rules allows us to compare evaluations with trimming and without trimming. Yeah. Now one may say, look, half pipe, whatever it's called, half pipe, frisky half pipe. What is this? So we agree that this setting is unusual, although we don't really care. But it has the advantage of providing clean identification and is therefore a perfect domain because there are no other such domains for our research question, for the effect of trimming the extreme balls on favoritism. Okay, so a little bit about frisky half pipe, since there are probably many people that don't really know what is this. These competitions are staged under the umbrella of the Federation of Ski, International Federation of Ski, starting from 2014. Winter Olympic Games free ski halfpipe is an official Olympic medal event. Athletes perform a series of jumps and tricks on their skis while going down the length of a large halfpipe made of snow, as you saw. This is called one run. Competitions consist of qualification, where they do 2 runs, and final, where they perform 3 runs. And something like between 8 to 12 top-ranked athletes from the qualification phase qualify for the final. The performance is purely determined by a jury panel. There is no such thing as length or something like that. It's the jury panel that decides about the score. And the score, the range of scores is between 0 to 100 for each run. So the judges have some guidelines, and the guidelines refer to 5 criteria, which is execution, difficulty, amplitude, variety, and progression. And also false, of course, or mistakes play a role. And it is explicitly specified that judges must be fair and unbiased, explicitly regarding national affiliation, race, gender, or sponsor. However, judges may also get some subjective evaluation and personal preference to their evaluation, for example, to better compare between 2 runs of the execution of the same trick. Now, despite the fact it's explicitly stated that they have to be unbiased, well, it's written everywhere. But you have biases and you have deviations between different evaluators in many settings. Now, to prevent extreme discrepancies among judges, a head judge is overseeing the judge's decision and scoring results. So there are no direct sanctions, but it is still plausible to assume that judges with frequently extreme opinions could face future career consequences. It's never written everywhere, but it makes kind of plausible assumption. So you don't want to perceive that you are always outside of the range of the other scores. Now, according to FIS regulations, all judges on the jury panel must represent a different country. So most judges are men, but there are also women that evaluate performances. Okay. So as I have said, up to, by the way, are there any questions so far? All is good. Okay. So as I said, up to 18th-19th season, there were 5 judges on the jury panel whose scores were used to calculate the average without trimming the extreme scores. So we can see it here. This is the evaluation before the change. You have like run 1, all the scores taken into account. The average is based on all the scores. So run 2 was the best run. Okay. However, starting from 2018-19 season, the fees switched to 6 and sometimes 7. We have 2 competitions with 7 judges on the jury panel, and 2 scores, the highest and the lowest, were trimmed. So we can see results from competitions with trimming after the change. So we can see for every run, 2 scores were removed. So for example, in run 1, we see 90 and 94 were trimmed. In run 2, 93 and 91 were trimmed. And in run 3, 60 and 42 were, well, 42 is really far away. Look at the variance here. Okay, yeah, Daniel has a question. Was it Daniel?
Yeah,
Daniel.
sorry, I was struggling to find the microphone. So are these cards typical? There seems to be like, very, very little variation across judges. So, it's 88 versus 87 versus 86. It seems as if also, this trimming would not result in much going on because, the grades are so compressed that, it's
But
just
look at here
randomized.
in run. Look at here. For example.
Yeah, yes. So that was clearly like a bad run. Maybe there was a mistake. The athlete fell or something like that. And then there's variation. But if I understand correctly, that doesn't count anyway, right? You're only counting the best score.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. As we will see, always the effects are not super large, but there is still systematic effect in other settings. Whether they are large, it's discussable, but we will see. Maybe we'll come back to this point about the size of the effect later. Okay. So let's see. So we collected data from the official website of FIS on all men's and women's World Cups, World Championships, Olympic Games. So all the big tournaments between 2012 to 2024. So we have tournaments without trimming between 2013 to 15 and with trimming between 19 to 24. So in total, we have that many scores. We have, after the change, we have 2 competitions with 7 judges. We will take this into account a bit later. So this is our data. This is the descriptive statistics trimming of being trimming and compatriot judge. So without trimming and with trimming. So we can see the average score when a compatriot judge evaluates his compatriot athlete. 56.94. With trimming, it's 53.83, and so on and so on. So if you see something interesting, you can stop me. Yeah, the within standard deviation, overall standard deviation, all this may be helpful. Okay, can I move forward? Yeah. Okay. Okay. And this is first empirical evidence. So here we are using the idea presented in a paper by Justin Wolfers about the betting odds and shaving points. So he had a theoretical distribution if nothing happens, and then he showed actual distribution, and close to the points that are close to the betting odds of the gap of the points, he showed that there are real big jumps, and that served as evidence that there is a point shaving there. Now, here we see the following. So let's take a look at competitions without trimming. The blue bar, so we have 5 scores. The highest score, second highest, mid, second lowest, and the lowest. In the absence of any bias, I would expect that that a compatriot would give 20% of time to his compatriot athlete. The lowest score, second lowest, mid, second highest, or highest score. So in the absence of any bias, a judge that evaluates his compatriot would assign the highest score in 20% of times. And that's not evidence of bias. However, if a compatriot assigns the highest score in more than 20% of times, this is first evidence of bias. Again, within the same jump, we compare within the same jump and we rank the scores within each jump. And we find that before the change, the share of the highest scores assigned for a compatriot's performance in men's and women's competitions are 28.1 and 27.9%. So this is 28%, and this is 28%. And they are significantly different from the unbiased share of 20%. So among 5 judges, there should be 20% share of the highest scores by compatriot, and that's kind of expected and not biased. Now, after the change, obviously, the unbiased share is now we divided by 6 and not by 5. So we removed here the competitions with 7 judges. And we can see already that there is some reduction, still something is going on. By the way, here we saw that compatriot judges assigned significantly less frequently the lowest score to their compatriots than the 20% share among men and also among women. Yeah. So we see some kind of bias in favor rather than against a compatriot, which is in line with previous literature. After the change, well, it's much more shrink, although still we see something may go on. Okay, now one may claim, look, Alex, is a very nice thing, but here you have 5 judges, here you have 6 judges. So technically, technically what can happen is that even without any change in behavior, there can be reduction in bias, regardless of trimming or not trimming. So let's see. So for a panel with 5 judges that consist of a compatriot judge and the other 4 judges, the bias is calculated as follows. So assuming that the compatriot always assign the highest score. So bias, if we have 5 judges, is the score of the compatriot judge minus the average of the other four scores. Okay, that's the bias. By the way, we don't have to assume that it's always highest, but that's how we calculate. If they are the same, then there is no bias. Now, for a panel that consists of a compatriot judge and the other 5 judges, that is judges 5 to 6, that's the bias. Okay. Now, what we try to claim is that the trimming mechanism has an ex-ante effect on behavior of judges. So they behave better than previously. But one may say, look, it's a very technical thing what you find. You have 6 judges versus 5 judges. So of course you will have a reduction. So, okay. So no change in behavior of the existing judges means that they do not change their score. So we had judge number 6. Let's assume that the judges 2 and 5, they still behave the same. And let's assume the judge, the compatriot judge still behaves the same. The only question what the other 6 judge does. So in such a case, the greatest reduction in nationalistic bias that can be achieved, provided that the compatriot judge still assigns the highest score, happens when the new judge assigns an identical score to the compatriot judge. Yeah, then we can rewrite it like that. And we can see that the maximal technical reduction in nationalistic bias by moving from a panel of 5 to a panel of 6 judges is 20%. So technically, we should expect reduction in bias of 20%, even if people don't change their behavior. Yeah. If the score of judge 6 is lower than the score of the compatriot judge, which is plausible thing, because we still believe that the compatriot judge will give higher score than all the others. But let's say that this is not the case, then we will have a reduction of 20% in nationalistic bias. But if the additional sixth judge assigns a lower score than the compatriot judge, then the technical reduction in bias will be even less than 20%. But let's take 20% as the maximum reduction of bias without any change in behavior. So what we did, we ran a fixed effects model where what we do is the following. We have a compatriot, we have a diff and diff compatriot times after the change. Then we have performance fixed effects, judge per season fixed effects. Yeah. And each line here represents different regression for different subsample. Now, when we use all data for both genders, we find that before the change, that is, there was no trimming, compatriot judges assigned significantly higher scores to their compatriot athletes. Then there is the score after the change is lower. And when the total effect of nationalistic bias after the change is not significant. Now, straight away, I'm saying the diff and diff is not significant by itself. Yeah, that's what we have, but that's how it is. However, we also see what is the change in the bias. Remember, we discussed the 20%, the technical reduction that we should expect if which is the highest reduction, highest technical reduction possible without changing the behavior. Now, in most cases, it's much more than 20%. So then we do all men's competitions, scores above median, below median, finals, qualifications, I don't know. Whatever we do, more or less we always find, or in most cases, we find that there was a significant nationalistic bias without trimming, and bias that is close to zero in most cases, maybe except for the finals in women, which nothing happened there. So after the change, the nationalistic bias a priori is not significantly different from zero. That's basically the main result of this paper. And most importantly, those reductions are much higher than 20%. Okay, guys, questions so far? Okay, so it's kind of a short paper today. Before Shabbat. Remember last time I did about Shabbat and the internet collapsed. So now, okay. So this paper was motivated by the absence of evidence from real world settings about the effect of trimming of extreme votes in panels of experts on favoritism. And we know favoritism plays a role in so many cases. So basically, this is the first paper outside of lab about the effect of trimming on behavior of professional experts whose subjects of evaluations are highly incentivized and professional individuals, and not students who get like €5 to do something that they are not familiar with. Whether or not trimming the extreme votes can serve as a remedy for bias in subjective evaluations is entirely an empirical question, because the theory shows different perspectives, and because there are different forces, private preferences versus reputational preferences, and that's why it's really an empirical question to understand what is the force that dominates. And our results indicate that trimming of extreme votes mitigates biases not only ex post by excluding the extreme votes from the overall panel count, but also ex ante by changing the behavior of individual judges. Thank you very much. That's it for today.
Thank you, Alex. Well, it's not if there's loads of questions, so I'm going to give you a team's round of applause. Really interesting talk on trimmed means. You thought you could make a talk on trimmed means as interesting as that, Alex. We've got Daniele with his hand up first of all.
Thank you very much.
Now I have, like, just very quick reflection. I think the interesting result is that, the nationalistic bias became insignificant in the trimmed, when you're using trimmed scores,
Yes.
right? That's my, the alpha 1 plus alpha 2 column, which is, that's a positive result. I mean, there's, you have the result that, yes, there was significant nationalistic bias, in the pre-period, and they're like, the treatment was successful in almost eliminating completely. And I think that's an important message.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I was afraid of this insignificant difference. If we economists like to say, well, that's not significant, so what did you find? That's
I mean, if you had a lot more competitions, maybe it would become
Yeah,
significant, even though, like, you have already
Yeah,
a pretty
pretty-
significant number of runs. So
yeah. But still, I mean, this one compared to 20% is also, I think, very important to show the change.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Okay, we have Jean-Louis with his hand up next.
So I guess he's speaking, but he is on mute.
Do you hear me?
Oh, here you go.
Yeah,
Got you now.
Yes. Alex, a very interesting and also challenging subject, even very difficult to some extent. Trimming as a big advantage is very simple procedure, but in fact you withdraw some information by putting out of the sample the best and the lowest score. As far as I know, there is maybe an alternative which is used in different areas of application, even in sports. As far as I understood, is that we call the shrinkage estimator, which has been applied maybe in baseball. It relies on taking the deviation from the mean to an average mean and multiplying this deviation by a coefficient less than 1 and adding the mean. It's called a shrinkage estimator, James Stein estimator, mixed model estimator. And it doesn't avoid, in that case, to lose some information. So did you consider this, or can you consider it?
No, we did not consider this. I wasn't aware of this.
Okay. I can
So
send you some reference if you wish.
Yeah, thank you.
There was a famous paper in 1977 by Efron and Morris.
Yes. Actually, now when you say yes, I do
Efron
know.
was the famous guy from sampling procedure. So that can be considered. Even with rough coefficient, that might be an alternative.
The beauty in this one is that it's very straightforward and simple. I understand the downside is that you lose information.
But you know, at the era of numerical device, if people agree on the formula, that doesn't make controversy, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it has been applied in baseball, as far as I understand.
Thanks.
So, thanks.
Thanks, Jean-Louis. More questions and comments? Stefan.
Oh, you can turn it off.
Oh, you don't get away that easily.
I sent you many messages. Now I find you.
Well, yeah, that's the only way to really grab my attention. It's to give an interesting paper, Alex, which it is.
Thank you, Stefan.
So, yeah, I mean, I just raised a problem. I don't know how you can deal with this, or I don't even know how much of it is a problem. But it strikes me that the thing is, when you think about biases, I mean, your whole framing is that we're all subject to biases, which is surely true. And I mean, obviously, nationalistic bias is one that's potentially very important. But there's another bias that strikes me which is a tendency towards consensus. I would think if you get a panel of judges together, there's going to be a tendency for them all to focus in on a common value, just because, you know, social, you don't want to stand out, you don't want to be out the guide. I think you mentioned that before, you know, it could affect you if you stand out. So the issue then, it strikes me, is that each score for each panel, these are not really truly independent. In some sense, they're not random draws from a distribution. They're already correlated in some way. And I wonder if there's any way to take account of that. I don't know.
You mean well, I don't know. So well, you know, we're using this performance fixed effects, but it doesn't solve what you're asking for, right? Because it's within each performance.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, I suppose there's a fixed effect for each particular.
For each performance, it's within each performance.
Yeah, so maybe
is that what you mean?
Maybe that deals with it. Yeah, maybe it does. I don't know.
Yeah, no, because we cannot compare two different performances without taking. So the beauty here is that they observe 5 people or 6 people observe exactly the same. So why would be there any systematic bias, like before the change, of a compatriot? The only explanation is there is nationalistic bias. But then, if there is nationalistic bias without trimming, the trimming actually solves it. So within each performance, then we solve what you say.
Yeah, no, it's more the sort of statistical thing about whether all of these events are in some sense independent of each other.
There is dependency within. We also control for judge per season fixed effects because we believe maybe judge is more lenient or more strict. So we also control for that, for example.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, you have a lot of controls. So yes, I know I'd have to think about it more, but it's interesting. It's an interesting paper. Nice.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thanks, Stefan. Henrik is next.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for the talk.
Thank you.
So, if I understood correctly, so you explain your result that this last column, so that the sum of the estimated coefficients are not different from 0, with the fact that there could be some anticipation behavior, anticipating behavior, right?
This ex ante changes their behavior. This trimming.
So what I would expect next is something like a kind of event study design where you, I don't know, work with time bins just before the rule change and the time after, so that you can really zoom in, like in an event, like in this event study design, and look what's going on, because this after indicator is very broad, right? It includes all the performances after the rule change. But you want to give some life to your story, I would say it makes sense to zoom in and econometrically see what happens in smaller time bins.
I mean, I'm not sure I understood what exactly good to do.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about so in this so what is standard in labor economics is that you have this two-way fixed effect model with the staggered treatment, and you have this time bins that indicates the time before and after the treatment. Yeah.
Now I get you. Now I get you. But the point is that we use the performance fixed effects within each run.
Yeah.
So I guess it's even much stricter than everything that can go. So 5 people observe exactly the same within the same period of time, within the same year, which is after the change or before the change. That rules are constant there. So I don't have any other cleaner identification here.
All right. So for this static version, I would say performance fixed effects are would say A plus, right? But to give more life to your story, that it's anticipation that is happening here. It would be great to see some more detailed view on what's happening just before and after the rule change. And I don't know, maybe you have to lose this idea where to pose it to your fixed effects, but yeah, just an impulse, right? What I would like to see.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Hendrik. That's a really interesting point, actually. And I guess you may have covered this, and I may have totally missed it, Alex. But I guess the trimming is an idea that, is the idea that these nationalistic guys are behaving the same before and after, and it's just that the trimming does the work? Or do you think that the nationalistic guys are changing their behavior once the trimming comes in as well? Are they trying to be the second highest evaluator rather than
in
the
that
highest
regard,
beforehand?
I have the answer for you. So this is this is with trimming.
Second highest, yeah.
Yeah, but no. I mean, so one of the game theoretical decisions, like in this Keynes beauty game, is that you want to be the second highest to influence, but we don't see it. We had it in mind when we wrote it. I thought they will become second highest, but no. They just changed their behavior. That's it.
Just not canny enough to do. It must be very hard to be the second highest, mustn't it? I guess.
No. Second, if you still want to favor, you want to be as close as possible to the highest one.
Yeah.
But I guess it's also not very easy to. Clearly, they don't want to be outside of the trimming because it's their name is being deleted or whatever. So it has some consequences on behavior.
And is anything? So you have all the scores before and after, so you know which score's been trimmed. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So judges would know.
That's how we know.
And so judges would be given feedback on how many of their scores were excluded.
I guess. Well, they see it instantly on the screen.
Interesting. Because again, you might expect that that's some kind of feedback, isn't it? A feedback mechanism. Oh, I'm being excluded. I'm being excluded. Maybe I'd better do something different.
Yeah.
And you can track individual judges.
We track them. We use the judge per season fixed effects within the same season. What's happening with them for all the evaluations they.
And to go back to your kind of not being conspicuous point about judges, I don't know whether you have any kind of whether you're able to use the data you've got to shed some light on that. I mean, do you think?
No, we never contacted them. Have we, Felix?
Well, I'm wondering more.
No.
We never contacted. No.
I'm wondering more whether you said that the natural idea is that judges want to follow the consensus. I wonder whether you're to the extent to which you see that within the data, and do you see a reaction if a judge sees that they're being trimmed a lot? Do they subsequently adapt their behavior? Do you see them revert back to very close to them, even below the mean, something like that?
No, but we never did it. We wanted to see you see the beauty of this setting is that we are the first to find something like that. And there can be some premium of maybe not doing something, although I think we did a lot here.
No, absolutely. I'm just kind of telling you all the things that popped in my head, that's all. So.
Okay.
Any more questions and comments?
Okay. So thank you, guys. I want to wish you all happy World Cup, and I guess we'll have lively discussions on our Roses chat.
Absolutely. And so if people do want to join and take part in those discussions, let me have your phone number if I haven't got it already. And if you previously given me a phone number and said, let me join, and I've not added you, then please do nag me again. Thank you, Alex. That was a really interesting talk. As said, it's impressive to make a talk about trimming the mean as fascinating as that. It's a great data set, really novel. I wish you and your co-authors, Tim and Felix, all the best as you proceed with your paper. And so as mentioned at the start, we're not going to meet again for another couple of weeks, which means that the World Cup will have started by the time we next meet at the usual time. That's when we're going to have Julia Engel from the University of Kiel presenting out of sync evidence from remote work across time zones. And so with that, in a few weeks' time. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.